about to do that. Recording this, and so we'll be doing this for people who, for whatever reason, can't make this. So, Stuart, this will be going out to at least, I know, about another 3 or 4 people that'll be going out to in emails as well. So, apart from the people that are here tonight, so this will be going out to them as well. So,
fantastic.
So we've got probably more as well, actually, mind you. We'll probably put some parts of this on our Bridging the Gap tribe as well. So we've got a couple of things I want to talk to you about. Karen's actually been here, and Damien has actually seen this as well. Guinevere, you don't know anything about this, so we'll just be talking to you about this as well. We have what we call reboot challenges in our gap coaching work. Those reboot challenges at this stage cover 2 areas. The first area is our Back on Track one. We've actually got several people this week doing that. Which is getting people back on track for where they should be, to get back into work, to get back into life, to make the changes that they need to make right now, particularly during this time of COVID. And, you know, people sort of, in fact, they were saying today on the news that there are 3 million people in Australia looking to do different things. And of those 3 million people, about half or more of those are deciding that they probably will change what they're going to do in life, as in, you know, their work, their careers and so forth. There's a lot of people working on that situation right now. So that's one of the reboots we're doing. The second thing we're doing is something that others of us have done as well, which is a reboot relationship challenge. And that is actually looking at how our relationships can be better, how our relationships can be enhanced, how our relationships can get going, for that matter, in certain situations, in certain people's lives. And so, again, I won't go into that too much. We'll go into that a little bit at the end, just before we finish up, just to remind people. And then finally, we're also, this month, we've started actually looking at memberships, and we're doing what we call foundation members. Foundation members, at this stage, we're doing it as at $10 a month, and those foundation members will receive a whole bunch of things. We'll talk about some of those things at the end of the time. Give Stuart as much time as we can to chat. But suffice to say that this membership will also be heading towards not only the business that we run, but also towards mentoring young people. And we've also started Larry and I have actually started up a brand new Facebook page just as of yesterday. We're calling Apprenticeship Reboot, where we're actually doing this for apprentices and trainees as well, because there's a lot of people that will need this assistance. So anyway, so now that Stuart can see us.
My picture was looking really fuzzy. It looks as though I'm in a fog.
Just give it a wipe over there.
Give it a wipe.
Now that Stuart can see us properly, that's the first thing. So I'm just reminding you about the reboots, about memberships. Those things are important to us in what we're doing and how we're going about changing people's lives right throughout our nation and beyond, ultimately. And we're certainly looking to help people find their purpose and their why and everything else in life. So, all that said, let me just give an intro to Stuart Ballantyne. For those of you that are on here, most of you will know Stuart at this stage. Some of you that are maybe watching this later on may not know Stuart. And his background is in the marine industry, as you can see by his picture there. His boat in the background. It doesn't mean that he's like a giant and that's a normal sized boat. It actually just means that it's actually a model. But he's been involved in the marine industry for what, 40 plus years? Would that be right, Stuart?
Yes. Well, since I left school.
Yeah, so there you go. And he is, I think, now, I'm not going to, you can tell them about what it is that your actual designations are in terms of master of this and so forth and so on. But I will say this, that Stuart is not only a person who has a lot of wisdom in terms of the area of I guess, business, and he also has a lot of wisdom in the area of life in general. I found him to be one of the most generous and most amazing people we met. He's been a friend now for probably, I would say, 25 to 30 years, 25 plus years at least. And we've known each other for all that time. And during that time, we've traveled to Scotland together. Yes. 1999, we traveled to Scotland, wee Bonnie, Scotland, and sorted out the Church of Scotland people over there. And did a whole bunch of other things over there at the time, and reached a lot of people in that time while we were in Scotland for that particular trip. And in between, we've done lots of other things in between, church-wise and various other things. And I know that his heart and his life has been based upon some of the things that he's been through in life, the things that have challenged him, the things that have been made things difficult. And of course, one of the things that difficult things do for us, if we have the right purpose in life, can actually bring us through into the other side and help us through. So Stuart, as we head into tonight, thank you so much, first of all, for coming on. Really appreciate you joining us this evening. And we want to actually start with a little bit of what we mentioned earlier about that we would talk about some of this. And I guess what I'd like you to do, if you can, is give us a little bit of history of where you've come from, what you've been through, and how that, I guess how the purpose in your life has really helped, you to do that. So I'll leave it over to you. So everyone now, hey, well done, Stuart. Good to have you on, and thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Well, I'm number 3 of 6 kids out of a Scottish shipbuilding family in a little town in Scotland. And number 3 is a great number because they can never remember your name. It's really good, So I came to Australia when I was 14, disappeared to sea at 16. And so I was at sea for 7 years. I was a navigator on passenger cargo ships. And then I went back to Scotland to study ship design. And people say, why'd you get back to Scotland? I said, because there's perfectly good naval architecture places here in Australia. I said, listen, the weather in Scotland, there's in Sydney University, there's lots of bikini girls and parties. In Scotland, the weather is so bad and the women are so overdressed. There is no distractions from studying. So I went back there and studied as hard as I could because I only had a limited amount of money. And then I came back to Australia, worked for a couple of years for the Australian National Line, started my own little thing in when I was 29 years old. It's only a couple of years ago. And I picked the Gold Coast because the weather was so nice, and I was working in Melbourne. I thought, why would you stay in Melbourne? It's just the weather's terrible. So I came up here, put up my little shingle, because I figured out that if you're going to be alive and breathing for 168 hours a week, you should be giving priority to where you want to live as opposed to where you have to work. So with this foolish ideology, I came and hung up my shingle here, and it went swimmingly well for a number of years. And then we had a person called Paul Keating who gave us the recession we had to have when the bank interest rates were 18 to 19%.
I remember I was in the bank at the time.
Yes, and you were one of the evil people in the bank. Yes,
I was.
Anyway, but I was on overdraft, and I had 300 staff, and Steph and I had 300 staff, and the banks because of an overdraft, you're 22%. So because we were dealing with export, anyway, so they came along with a big gun and they bang, gone. So we lost everything. At the age of 42, lost everything. So lost the house, lost the company, lost the car. They took everything. And so we ended up in a little rental place in Eagleby, near Beenleigh, with 4 boys at private Christian schools and a big dog that ate more than the 4 boys. And everyone says, well, you're going to get a job with the government now. I said, no, because my passion, my purpose in life was something in the marine. And while I'd been to sea and come ashore and worked in operations, and then I went back to designing. So I run Australia's largest independent ship design company. We have 3 offices in Australia, 1 in Hong Kong, 1 in the US. They're only small offices, but it's a nice place to be. And there's plenty of challenges. And the thing that, I'm just astonished. Because we went through a challenge before and we lost everything, we just went back to the Word, we pressed into the Word, and we were restored within probably 2 years, fully restored. And I can tell you some of the stories, but just standing on the Word and confessing, when you do fall down, you got to get back up. You have to get back up. There's a lot of people that fall down, they stay down, or else they'll say, oh, okay, I'm going to just get a job with the government. And we didn't take that view. We actually, instead of getting a job, I couldn't get a job. I applied everywhere to get a job. And in the end, I bought a company. Steph and I bought a company on vendors' terms. And it's unbelievable. And this is about prayer and, and praying in the Spirit. We were led to buy a company. The guy wanted $1 million at the time. And I was on the dole with no money at all. And I bought it for $9,000 deposit. And I said to the guy, I'll pay you vendors terms over 8 years. Anyway, this guy was so fed up with the business. He sort of, yes, okay, you can do that. And we both worked very hard in that company, but instantly it had a fantastic cash flow. And people said, oh, you're crazy, going back to driving a barge and things like that. And I have to tell you that the third day that I was driving this barge, a fairly good-looking, attractive woman came to the wheelhouse of this little barge and said to me, are you the new owner? I said, yes, I am. She said, oh. She said, that's fantastic. She said, I'll do the same deal as, she looked me up and down. She says, I'll do the same deal as I did with the last owner. I said, what's that? She says, he would let me and my car travel for nothing, anytime I wanted. And then he'd come across to my place on Macleay Island on that Wednesday afternoon, we'd have a bit of whoopee. I said, oh, that sounds fantastic. So I said, I just got to ask that girl down there on the deck. She said, who's that? I said, oh, that's my wife. I said, she doesn't like that sort of thing. She's going to stab you and me for even talking about this, you see. I said, no, it's just cash. And then the next day, a guy rings me up. He says, oh, you're the new owner? Yes, I am. He said, where would you like your concrete? I said, what concrete's that? He said, oh, I had a deal with the previous owner that he would let my concrete trucks travel on your barges. And I would he'd give me a discounted rate, and I'd deliver 20 to 30 cubic meters of concrete. And I said, no, there's no deals, no contras, it's just cash. When I cleaned up all of these contras, this was a fantastic cash flow business that I really bought for $9,000. And we sold it, I think, 12 years later or 14 years later. It got the boys kept in school, and we sold it for $12.5 million. So, God always honors His word as long as you keep standing. When things look the bleakest. But I think you have to have once you've got your purpose, I think it's easy. It might not be, for instance, I was happy designing, but all of a sudden I was back to operating. Didn't worry me, So.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about that, in terms of your purpose and what you're doing. Obviously, there's a passion in there. You mentioned that a few moments ago. What do you describe as passion? Like, what would you describe as passion in terms of how you look at passion?
Okay, well, the name of my boat is Passion, and there's a big sign inside the boat that says you cannot achieve greatness without passion. You got to be passionate about it. And I've said this, and we won a Export Hero of the Year award back in 2008, and they kept asking me, at all these seminars, and I said, well, what drives? I said, you have to have a passion, and you cannot achieve greatness without passion. I keep saying that to young people.
Yeah,
but
that's a great saying.
Yes, you can't achieve greatness without passion, and when I say to young people, they said, oh, but I don't know what to do. In fact, even older people, I've come across people that I don't know. They say, I don't know what my purpose in life. I always say the same thing: go and travel. And if you're living with your parents, go on a one-way ticket. Don't hassle them, and don't rely on them. Go and travel. Even if you're leaving school or uni, just go and travel, because as you are traveling and you're dependent on your own skills, even dishwashing or car washing or doing something, you will find out what your passion is. And when you'll find out because I believe that, look, God is so good. He gives us individual fingerprints, individual face, eyes, voice.
Yeah.
And he gives us an individual talent. And I believe that you go and find out what your talent is, but you got to keep. A lot of people, unfortunately, don't find the talent. They come through life and then they have a bit of a skirmish and then just crawl back in a hole and are unhappy the rest. But I think you got to go and find it.
Yes.
So I was lucky. I just I just escaped to sea. I was happy there.
Yeah, but I don't think, I mean, I understand what you mean by lucky, but I don't think it's all just about luck in the sense that you've got to get out of your box and pursue.
Oh, yes. I mean, I knew I wanted to do something with ships, but of course, when I went to sea, I didn't know I was going to end up being one of the top 3 in the world designing ships. But I didn't know that, but I knew I was something to do with the sea. So 7.5 years at sea. And then I thought, okay, well, I really like design. So I'll go back to Scotland. I'll study again in Scotland. And, I came back and I couldn't get a job, so I couldn't get a job in design. So anyway, I worked with the government for a little while in shipping. And, but then when I set up my own shingle, I was back to design again, and here we are. We've sold our designs to 47 countries. So,
Wow.
Not everyone likes us, but there we go. But in terms of the Christian, I don't know how people actually make it through without being tied to God in a covenant. I don't. Unfortunately, my brothers and sisters, I've got one sister that's a Christian, and the rest are not. As I say, we've got 6 or 5 siblings, but only one's a Christian. And I keep saying to the guys, come to church with me, or sit and watch Joel Osteen with me. No, they don't want to borrow it, And I think, wow. But then, of course, when the COVID virus comes along, they said, oh, what do we do? What do we do? I said, don't you worry about the COVID virus, Don't you worry. They said, how come you're never worried about these things? I said, that's why I asked you to come to church. I said, really, it's about building your faith. And faith building, I found, isn't a straight line. It doesn't go like that. It goes like that, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
You have things that, Larry will agree with this, is, you have things in your life that you think, wow, and it takes you to a new level. And when people say to me, oh, do you think God's real? I said, no, I don't think he's real. I know he's real. I know he's real. And,
yeah. Look, so true, isn't it? So true. And and one of the things that, as we look at this tonight, finding your purpose is certainly there's the pieces of the puzzle that we're all looking for. Like in terms of your purpose, your passion, all those things you've mentioned. But the piece of the puzzle that really makes a massive. Hi, Narelle, thanks for joining in. The piece of the puzzle that you look like you're kind of sitting back there with eyes shut. Is that you, or you're looking down? Oh, she can't hear me. That's all right. Doesn't matter. Look, she kind of looked like she had her eyes shut there for a minute. Anyway.
But Sandy, can I say something?
Keep going, yes.
A lot of places where I share the message, and a lot of people come out to me and say, I'm at a crossroads. I don't know what to do. I'm thinking about changing direction. I don't know what God's got for me in my life. I get that question as probably the number one question if I'm out sharing a message with churches, and I've done it all over the world. And it's the number one question where Christians going along and said, well, I'm not sure of my purpose, what God wants me to do. And I had those moments. And because I'm traveling a lot, I can't be committed to, helping out in the church, being, an usher or something like that. And when I sat and prayed about this, God came back with an absolute clear message. Just do what you're doing. Because for what Stephanie and I do is we seed a lot of seed into good ministries,
Yeah, you do. And it's a big part of your purpose, isn't it?
Yes. And a lot of people say, well, what's God got for me? If you're doing a good work, and if you're happy doing that. Don't change course just because you think you should change course.
Yeah.
You know, just keep going.
Excellent. Let me ask you. So, in your life right now, what would you say would be the thing that you're learning right now?
The thing that I'm learning, I got a hold of Cole Stringer's Praying in the Spirit book, and he gave this to me about probably 3 years ago. And in that book it says, whatever you do, you must read this book 3 times. Right?
Okay.
And I can tell you, I've read it probably 12 times, and that was a real valuable thing for me because it gives you such insight and wisdom. And you almost can go to a meeting where you can predict what they're going to say. It's not I mean, not that clear, but I mean it's just you know, being led by the Spirit, and I found it tremendously helpful. So if anyone's, it's only a small book. It's quite a thin one.
Yep.
But and he did a message at Dream Center along those lines. I don't know if you remember it, Larry. But and it was just a great message. And I got the book from him that day, and it's one of the ones by my bedside. And that's such a powerful tool for Christians. A lot of them won't come to that level, you know, that oh no, I don't think that praying in tongues is any good, and blah blah blah. But gee whiz, I found that's what I'm learning at the moment. And
that's great.
So,
and look, one final question I just want to grab, and then we'll do a couple of we might actually have just maybe time for 1 or 2 questions if anybody had any questions. And finally, my last question is, what do you believe is going to take you forward? What's next?
well, hang on, I've got a Skype call from Thailand.
Oh.
I've got a maritime lawyer up there that does a lot of our work. So where am I going from here? I'm just consolidating. You know, we have a prayer every morning about how when we make ourselves available. I said, okay, well, we'll be available. And I don't know if Larry probably doesn't know this, but I was watching Joel Osteen. We always say we're available to be a blessing. And I watched Joel Osteen last Sunday morning, and he says, you've got to chase after the prodigals, the guys that you haven't seen in church, the guys that have not been in church for at least 2 months. And I thought, I know lots of people that haven't been in church for the last. The prodigals. And, so he says, what you've got to do is swing by them or ring them up and say, hey, can you guys want to come and, you know, have a coffee with me, or et cetera, et cetera. So I got to my book, the people that I haven't seen. I rang Sandy and Glennis. So I then rang the Blamires, you know, Gordon and Diane Blamire, and Steve and Maureen Reed. I said, you guys are my prodigals. You got to come along for a coffee cruise. And sure enough, we did it, didn't we, Sandy?
And we did indeed, and I felt very saved.
Yeah.
So any questions from anyone else?
Yeah, so unmute yourselves, guys. And actually, I can unmute you, I think. Unmute there. I'm just going to ask you to unmute. And just if you've got one or two questions was all we've got time for. But anyway, so if you've got a question, let's grab onto it.
Yeah.
I can see Karen thinking about a question.
I know.
What's your question, Karen?
I don't know. That's the problem. I don't know. I don't know what my purpose is.
You don't know what your purpose is?
No.
Right, but what are you good at?
I am good at, I'm good at public speaking when I actually get the chance. I'm really good at, you know, hosting the carols. Dad always threw me in the deep end when he was alive and was preaching, and he'd say, come. And I'd go, I'm not prepared. And he'd say, yep, she's preaching today. But I wouldn't have a clue right now, and I know I need to change jobs. Yeah.
Yeah. I can tell you, if you're good at public speaking, 90% and 95% of people are not good at public speaking, and I was hopeless until I went to Toastmasters. But I finally overcame my fear. I had a fear of public speaking, but I was invited to do it because I was mainly technical stuff and conferences and stuff like that. But I had such a fear of it that I had to confront the fear. And I went to Toastmasters, which was the best thing I did. It was terrific. It unshackled me. But that's a terrific attribute. If you know, you say, okay, well,
Karen.
just put all the things, just list all the things that you like doing, and say, well, in this mix, I can put this. It's almost like baking a cake. Well, I can do this and this. So that opens up about 25 different job opportunity types, and say, well, I can go for that, because I can use all of my talents. If you find a job where you're using your talents, you never have to work again in your life.
I know, and that's what I want.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Maybe it's something that's fun and enjoyable that you gravitate to. I've noticed when I was at work, because I was at the Qantas Lounge in Brisbane in the business class, and you have 30 seconds to connect with someone.
Yes.
Within that 30 seconds, I have the incredible ability to puncture someone's heart and pick it up, have a look, and throw it back at them. And that was with 70% of the people. So I really find that the EQ is high, that you can, but I don't know where I'm looking. Yeah.
All right. Well,
we'll talk more about that.
I lived in Qantas.
Yes, you did live in Qantas. Yes, you did.
I lived in Qantas. Hey? So I probably met you before, Karen.
You probably have.
Absolutely, you would have. I'm absolutely positive you would have. Look, we've got to wrap up, guys. I'm so sorry to sort of just put a little bit of a kibosh on the questioning there. But Karen, if we can connect you with Stuart and myself at some stage on another occasion, if that's all right, Stuart, and have a bit more of a discussion.
No problem.
Lovely.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, look, let me just finish up by saying thank you so much for being on the call, so much for being with us this evening. We've got so much to be thankful for Stuart being here and sharing with us his story, his life. You know, some of the things that are in there. We haven't even got to some of the stories. There's so much more to be said. Perhaps we'll have you back for some more stories and some more Scottish jokes, Stuart. There's no question about that sort of side of you. Let me just wrap it up with saying next Friday night we are also having another Finding Your Purpose webinar, but it'll be a different thing altogether, completely different setup. So if you want to come back on again, it'll be a different thing altogether with a different situation, different information. And inspiration, and we look forward to having you on to share on that. The other thing that I would say is, don't forget we mentioned the reboots before. We mentioned about the reboot relationship. Narelle's on; she's done one of the reboots with us before, as well as have other people. Karen's done one. Damien's done some of it as well. But those are great for a 2-week challenge. We've got people doing that right now and really being affected positively, powerfully, actually, by those in relationship and, of course, back on track. And then the memberships, we're doing $10 per month memberships. We're including in that so much stuff, so much information, including what's already on our Facebook group, but so much more than that. Other brand new videos that we exclusively go to our members of information and, again, inspiration, things that can help you. So if you want to know more about that, please jump on Bridging the Gap Tribe, and we will actually get you the information, or send us your email address if we haven't already got it, or just give us an indication in the chat here or something, if you don't mind, to give us that you would like us to get more information to you. We just want to wrap it up there. We have 1 minute 19 left. Stuart, one final moment.
Yes. Well, and the other thing is keep a good sense of humor. You know, one of the things about Qantas, and I would walk into a Qantas plane or a Qantas lounge at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the girls would be, you know, I used to feel really sorry for them because they would, good morning, sir, how are you, sir? Good morning, sir, how are you, sir? Good morning, sir. And most of the grumble bums would say, not bad, you know. So I'd come in and if Karen said, good morning, sir, how are you, sir? I said, I'm fantastic, but getting better. And of course, immediately they say, wow, I'll have some of what you're having. I said, you can use that for the rest of the day, because what comes out of your
so
mouth is how your day is going to be.
Yes.
So absolutely. It's hard to find positive people, I tell you.
Oh, yes.
It is indeed. All right, we're about to go. Guys, God bless you. Have a fantastic
God bless
weekend.
you.
Talk to you
Thank
soon.
you.
Thanks,
Stuart.
Stuart. Bye for
Yeah,
now.
God
Thank
bless you
you,
heaps. Thanks.
Sandy. See ya.
Bye-bye, Guinevere.
Thanks,
Bye,
Andy.
Narelle.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Genevieve.
Bye, Damo.
Bye-bye. See you guys.
Bye.